Part 1. The man who refused to settle the old mill town had a way of swallowing dreams. Factories closed, houses crumbled, and young men gathered on cracked porches to talk about one day, while never lifting a hand to build it. Everyone seemed content to live inside the same small circle of comfort, repeating the same excuses year after year. But there was one man in that town who became different. His name was Daniel Carter. Daniel wasn't born special. He didn't have wealth, connections, or even luck on his side. In fact, he grew up with very little: an absent father, a tired mother, and a future that looked more like survival than success. But Daniel carried inside him something rare, a growing discomfort with mediocrity. Most people around him accepted life as it was. He couldn't. Rule 1. Refuse the chains of comfort. Daniel once worked in a small hardware store, sweeping floors and stacking shelves. It was easy work, safe work, and the pay was just enough to buy groceries. His co-workers told him, "You should be grateful. At least you've got a job." But Daniel felt like a lion pacing in a cage. Every day was the same. The routine was killing something inside him. He remembered watching his grandfather's hands, strong from years of farming, and he thought, "Men were made for struggle. Comfort is making me weak." One cold morning, instead of reporting to the store, Daniel signed up for night classes at the local community college. Everyone laughed. "Why work harder when you've already got it easy?" they asked. But Daniel had already decided. Comfort was his enemy, and he would break free. Rule 2. Build an inner fortress. Life tested him quickly. Bills piled up. His old car broke down. People mocked his choices. At times he questioned if they were right, if maybe he should quit school and go back to his safe routine. But Daniel remembered something his mother once told him. "Storms come for everyone. What matters is whether you have a shelter inside you." So he built that shelter. He read books on discipline and resilience. He wrote affirmations and carried them in his pocket. When doubt whispered, he fought it with belief. When hardship struck, he reminded himself that failure was only temporary. That inner fortress carried him through moments that would have broken a weaker man. Rule 3. Sharpen your vision until it cuts. One evening, while studying late, Daniel wrote a single question at the top of his notebook. "What kind of man do I want to become?" He sat for hours, imagining his life not as it was, but as it could be. He saw himself strong, capable, and respected. He pictured owning a business, helping others, and raising a family that never had to fear hunger the way he once did. That vision became his compass. From then on, every decision became simpler. Stay out late with friends? No, that didn't serve his vision. Waste time complaining about unfairness? No, his vision demanded action. Each choice was weighed against the future he had drawn in his heart. Rule 4. Master the fire of discipline. At first, discipline was hard. Daniel loved sleep. He loved comfort food. He loved putting things off until tomorrow. But he also knew tomorrow never came for most men. So he made small promises to himself, and kept them. Wake up 1 hour earlier. Study 1 extra chapter. Save $1 extra. Each small victory built his strength. He remembered a saying. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. Brick by brick he built that bridge. And each day, he crossed it. Rule 5. Crush the enemy called excuse. Excuses came knocking every morning. "You're too tired. You don't have time. Maybe next week." But Daniel had decided that excuses were lies. And lies had no place in his life. So when he was tired, he worked a little anyway. When he was broke, he invested his last few dollars in books. When he was uncertain, he moved forward in spite of fear. Each time he defeated an excuse, his confidence grew. Excuses stopped being chains. They became fuel for action. Rule 6. Carry the weight of responsibility. Then came the hardest lesson. His mother fell ill. Medical bills mounted. His siblings looked to him for support. Daniel could have complained. He could have said, "Life is unfair. Why me?" But he didn't. He told himself, "This is my life. My responsibility. My chance to rise." He took on extra work. He studied harder. He stopped waiting for someone to rescue him, and instead became the rescuer. And in carrying that heavy weight, he discovered strength he never knew he had. The turning point. Years later, Daniel would look back at those days and see them clearly. The rules he lived by had transformed him. He wasn't just a boy from a forgotten mill town anymore. He had become a leader, a man others admired, a man who had mastered himself. His story spread through his community, not because he was the smartest or the luckiest, but because he had refused to settle. And that is the first lesson: greatness does not belong to the chosen few. It belongs to anyone who rejects excuses, embraces responsibility, and demands more of themselves than the world expects. Daniel's journey had only begun. But already, the man he used to be would hardly recognize who he had become. Fire. That's part 1, about 1,000 words, story-driven, easy language, in the spirit of Napoleon Hill. Would you like me to continue parts 2 to 6 in the same style, each one building on Daniel's transformation with a new challenge and lesson? Part 2. The Circle That Shapes You. The storm came on a Tuesday. The old mill town was silent that morning except for the sound of rain on rusted rooftops. Daniel Carter sat at a wooden desk in his small rented room, staring at a single line he had written the night before. My future is too important to leave in someone else's hands. That thought had changed everything. Daniel no longer waited for the world to be fair. He had stopped hoping for rescue. He was learning to rescue himself. But as he discovered, there was another test waiting, one far trickier than broken cars or empty wallets. It was the test of people. Rule 7. Keep a circle that lifts you higher. In those early years, Daniel still spent time with the same friends he had grown up with, men who loved their comfort more than their dreams. They gathered on cracked porches, telling the same stories, making the same excuses. The system's against us. Why even try? Life's just unfair. At first, Daniel laughed along. But one evening, after a long shift at work and hours of studying, he walked home feeling heavy. Not heavy from the labor. He was used to that, but heavy in spirit. Their words echoed inside him. It's impossible. You're wasting your time. Nothing will ever change. For the first time, he wondered if they were right. That night he wrote in his notebook, Are my friends helping me rise or pulling me down? It was a painful question, but it led to a powerful truth. Your circle can either be the wind beneath your wings or the weight that drags you under. Daniel decided to test this truth. The weight of dead cargo. He remembered a story an old sailor once told him. Every ship carries weight. Some cargo keeps the journey alive, food, maps, tools. But some cargo is just dead weight. A wise captain knows the difference, because in a storm, that difference means life or death. Daniel realized his life was that ship. And many of the people around him were not cargo for the journey. They were anchors. After that, he began listening closely. When he left certain conversations, he felt weaker. When he left others, he felt stronger. That was the difference. He decided. I will only carry the weight that helps me sail. The power of uplifters. It wasn't easy to step away from his old circle. Loneliness followed him for weeks. But then he met Mr. Howard, a retired teacher who volunteered at the community library. Unlike Daniel's old friends, Mr. Howard asked questions that opened doors. What book are you reading? What skill are you learning this month? What's your plan for the next 5 years? Every conversation left Daniel taller, stronger, more certain. Mr. Howard didn't tell Daniel the road would be easy. Instead, he believed Daniel could walk it. That belief was fuel. Soon Daniel found more people like this, mentors, dreamers, workers who pushed themselves forward. They became his new circle. He noticed a strange thing. When you start lifting yourself, lifters find you. The eagle lesson. One evening, Mr. Howard told Daniel a story. An eagle's egg once rolled into a chicken's nest. When the eagle hatched, it lived among the chickens, scratching in the dirt, believing it was one of them. But one day it looked up and saw a bird soaring high above. Something inside it stirred. It spread its wings, and discovered the sky belonged to it too. Daniel, he said, you are that eagle. But you must choose whether you'll scratch in the dirt with chickens, or rise with eagles. That night Daniel wrote, If I want to fly with eagles, I must stop scratching with chickens. Rule 8. Welcome the hard road. It wasn't long before Daniel faced another choice point. 2 job offers came at the same time. One was safe and easy, a clerk position that paid enough to live comfortably. The other was demanding, an apprenticeship in carpentry that paid little at first, required long hours, and would leave his hands blistered. Everyone told him to take the easy one. It's steady. It's safe. You'll be fine. But Daniel had learned a powerful truth. The easy path preserves who you are. The hard path transforms you. So he chose carpentry. The first weeks were brutal. His muscles ached. His clothes were covered in dust. At night, he collapsed into bed too tired to think. But slowly, His body grew stronger, his hands steadier, his mind sharper. He began building not just furniture, but confidence. The hard road was shaping him into someone different. The secret of struggle. One night, after a long day of labor, Daniel looked at his blistered hands and smiled. "These scars," he thought, "are proof that I am not the same man I was." He realized something Napoleon Hill often taught: strength is not a gift, it is earned in the struggle. The smooth path could never have given him this feeling. Only the rough road could. The turning point. Months passed. Daniel's circle had changed. His road had grown harder. But he was becoming stronger than he had ever been. One evening he stood outside the workshop, sweat dripping, the smell of fresh cut wood filling the air. He thought back to those porch conversations, the complaints, the excuses. He thought of the old ship story, the eagle's story, the roads before him, and he whispered to himself, "The easy road makes you safe. The hard road makes you strong. I will choose strong." That choice marked the true beginning of Daniel's rise. Part 2 closes here. Daniel has now learned 2 new rules. 1. Choose a circle that lifts you higher. 2. Welcome the hard road. His journey continues, each lesson building upon the last, as he transforms into the man he was meant to be. Fire. That's part 2 in full story form, 1,000 words, simple, engaging, American-style inspiration, in line with Napoleon Hill's principles. Would you like me to move on and craft part 3, where Daniel faces his next great test? Resisting compromise and staying true to his vision even under pressure? Part 3. The Forge of Fire. The night was cold in the small town of Millstone. The streets were empty except for a boy walking home with tired steps and a stack of books under his arm. Daniel Carter had just finished another long day, work at the carpentry shop, a quick meal, then hours in the public library. As he turned onto the narrow street that led to his rented room, he thought about the strange truth he was beginning to learn. Comfort never made anyone strong. Hardship is the fire that forges us. The tree that could not stand. A few days later, Daniel's mentor, Mr. Howard, told him a story. "There are 2 trees, Daniel," the old teacher said. "One grows in a greenhouse. It's watered every day, shielded from storms, protected from cold. It grows tall and pretty, but its trunk stays thin and its roots stay shallow. The first storm outside will snap it in half. The other grows on the hillside. From its first day it battles wind and rain. Every gust thickens its trunk. Every storm drives its roots deeper. Years later, that tree is unshakable. While the greenhouse tree topples, the wild tree stands." Mr. Howard leaned forward. "You are that tree. And life's winds are not here to destroy you. They're here to make you unshakable." Daniel never forgot that lesson. Whenever he felt the pressure of long hours or unexpected setbacks, he whispered to himself, "This is my storm. This is my training." The woman who found her strength. Around this time, Daniel met a woman named Clara at the library. Her life had once been the picture of ease, married to a successful man, living in a comfortable house, never knowing real hardship. But then, within 1 cruel year, she lost her husband in an accident, her savings in a failed investment, and her health to an illness. "At first," Clara told Daniel, "I thought it would break me. I had been sheltered my whole life. I didn't know if strength lived anywhere inside me." But something remarkable happened. Each challenge she faced drew out hidden power. Each day she survived taught her she was stronger than she believed. She began making decisions on her own, carrying herself with determination, even in pain. Years later, when her life finally steadied, Clara looked back and said, "I used to curse those years. Now I thank them. They showed me who I really am. I wouldn't choose them again, but I wouldn't trade the person they made me for anything." Daniel listened carefully. He realized Clara had lived through what Mr. Howard had been teaching him. The hard road is not punishment, it is preparation. Rule 9. Guard your thoughts like treasure. One evening, after a long day, Daniel sat in his room staring at the cracked ceiling. He was exhausted and doubts started creeping in. Maybe I'm wasting my time. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe people like me never really make it. Those thoughts were like thieves sneaking into his mind. And he realized something frightening. If he believed them, they would rob him of his future. The next day, Mr. Howard gave him another story. "Daniel, think of a fortress. Strong walls, tall towers, soldiers at the gates. But at the center of that fortress is the command room. If an enemy captures that room, the whole fortress falls, no matter how strong the walls are. Your mind is that command room. If you let fear and doubt sit inside, you've already lost the battle. That image burned into Daniel's imagination. From then on, he became a mental warrior. Whenever a negative thought whispered, "You can't," he answered with, "Watch me." When fear said, "You'll fail," he replied, "Failure is my teacher." He learned that guarding his thoughts was not about pretending problems didn't exist, it was about choosing which voices to obey. The architect's secret. Daniel also began to notice something extraordinary. When he fed his mind with strong, positive thoughts, his actions followed. He remembered a book he had read about great builders. Before any skyscraper pierces the sky, it exists first as a complete picture in the architect's mind. Before any champion breaks a record, the victory is first won in the imagination. Thoughts, Daniel wrote in his notebook, are blueprints for destiny. From then on, he treated his mind like sacred ground. He trained his thoughts daily, just like an athlete trains his muscles. He filled his mornings with affirmations, his evenings with plans, and his nights with visions of the man he wanted to become. Rule 10. Stand unshaken in your values. But soon, Daniel faced a new test, one that would measure not just his strength or his thoughts, but his character. At the carpentry shop, a wealthy client offered him a shortcut, cheap materials disguised as quality wood. "You'll make twice the profit," the man said with a wink. "Nobody will ever know." For a moment, Daniel felt the temptation. Extra money would make life easier. But then he remembered another of Mr. Howard's lessons. There are two kinds of boats, Daniel. Some drift with every tide and wind, moving wherever the water pushes. Others drop an anchor. Storms may shake them, but they never lose their position. The difference is the anchor. Your values are your anchor. Without them, you drift. With them, you stand. Daniel looked at the man and shook his head. "I don't build lies. I build things that last." The client frowned, but Daniel felt something solid inside him, an anchor. He walked away poorer in money but richer in integrity. And he knew he had chosen the stronger road, the fire that shapes. By the end of that year, Daniel understood three things that changed his life. 1. Difficulty is the fire that forges you. Like the wild tree, every storm is shaping your roots and trunk for greatness. 2. Your thoughts are treasures. Guard them fiercely, because they are the blueprints for your destiny. 3. Your values are your anchor. Without them you drift, but with them you stand unshaken against every storm. One night he stood outside the workshop, calloused hands resting on a piece of finished wood, the stars bright above him. He whispered to himself, "Let the storms come. Let the winds blow. My roots are deep, my mind is guarded, and my anchor holds. I will not be moved." And with that, Daniel stepped forward into the next chapter of his life, stronger, sharper, and steadier than ever before. Why heavy checkmark? That's part 3, about 1,000 words, in full story style, easy for American readers, inspired by Napoleon Hill's principles, with your original lessons woven into Daniel's journey. Do you want me to continue shaping part 4? Where Daniel learns the power of vision and persistence, how to keep going when success still feels far away. Part 4. The hidden cost of small compromises. Daniel sat at his desk, staring at the clock. It was almost midnight. His journal lay open before him, the words from last night staring back. "Tomorrow I will begin my plan at 5 a.m. Yet, here he was, still awake, promising himself that he would try again. Tomorrow. It wasn't the first time. For weeks, Daniel had been building habits, waking early, working with focus, reading daily, and moving closer to his goals. But little by little, he had allowed himself to slip. First, it was sleeping an extra 30 minutes. Then, skipping a day of reading. Then saying, "I'll do it later," when he knew he wouldn't. One small compromise at a time, the castle he had been building was crumbling. The whisper of excuses. Napoleon Hill once wrote that defeat always begins in the mind. Daniel was starting to learn this the hard way. It wasn't a loud failure. It wasn't a sudden collapse. Instead, it was quiet. It was whispers. "Just sleep in a little longer. You worked hard yesterday, you deserve a break. One day it won't matter." These thoughts seemed harmless. But Daniel began to see a pattern. Every small compromise was like a crack in the foundation. If left alone, the cracks would widen until the whole structure fell. He realized that his future wasn't being stolen by big disasters, but by tiny decisions made in the shadows of his daily life. The meeting with Mr. Grant. One morning, Daniel visited his mentor, Mr. Grant, an old businessman who had built his success from nothing. Mr. Grant listened quietly as Daniel confessed his struggle. "Sir," Daniel said, "I don't know what's wrong with me. I keep losing focus. I make promises, but then I break them. I want to succeed, but these small choices keep pulling me down." Mr. Grant leaned forward. "Daniel, let me ask you, would you ever throw dirt into a glass of clean water, knowing you must drink it?" "Of course not," Daniel said. "Yet you do it every day," Mr. Grant replied. "Each compromise, each excuse, is dirt in the glass of your character. One grain may not harm you, but add enough, and the water becomes undrinkable." Daniel lowered his head. The truth stung, but it woke him up. The weight of focus that night, Daniel thought about Mr. Grant's words. He realized that success was not just about working hard. It was about protecting his focus as if it were treasure. He wrote in his journal, "I must guard my focus the way a soldier guards the gates of a city. Every excuse, every distraction, every compromise is an enemy at the door." And so, Daniel began again. He started with small victories. When his alarm rang at 5 a.m., he rose immediately, no matter how tired he felt. When his friends called to invite him out, he politely said, "Not tonight, I have work to do." When he felt the pull of laziness, he reminded himself, "If I bend today, I break tomorrow." Each small act of discipline made him stronger. Each victory gave him energy. Silent effort. One of the greatest lessons Daniel learned was the power of silent effort. Before, he used to tell everyone his plans. He wanted applause for his goals, even before achieving them. But he discovered that talking too much about his dreams drained the energy he needed to accomplish them. So, he stopped announcing. Instead, he worked in silence. He let his results speak. When he woke early, no one knew. When he studied late, no one saw. When he sacrificed pleasures for progress, no one clapped. But Daniel felt something new, inner strength. He no longer depended on approval. He built his own pride brick by brick, in the privacy of his discipline. The cycle of growth. As weeks passed, Daniel noticed a powerful cycle forming in his life. Act, reflect, grow. Each day, he acted with discipline. At night, he reflected on his wins and failures. From reflection, he grew stronger for the next day. It was simple, but it worked. When he stumbled, he no longer drowned in guilt. He asked himself, "What can I learn?" and used the lesson to rise higher. He realized that progress was not about never falling. It was about refusing to stay down. The turning point. One evening, Daniel walked past a group of friends at a cafe. They laughed, chatted, and teased him. "Daniel, why don't you relax? You work too much," one of them said. He smiled politely, but in his heart, he felt no shame. A year ago, their words would have pulled him back into comfort. But now, he understood something they did not. Comfort today can cost you freedom tomorrow. He walked on, proud of his silence, proud of his focus, proud of the man he was becoming. Napoleon Hill's truth. Napoleon Hill taught that every man is either the master or the slave of his habits. Daniel had seen both sides. When he allowed small compromises, he became a slave, pulled by laziness, distraction, and fear. But when he chose discipline, he became a master, directing his life toward his purpose with strength. Daniel now knew, success is never stolen in a single night. It is surrendered one small compromise at a time. And greatness is never won in a single act. It is built one small discipline at a time. Closing reflection. That night, Daniel wrote his final note in his journal for the day. "If I guard my focus, I guard my future. If I protect my discipline, I protect my destiny. I will not bend to small excuses, for they are the silent thieves of greatness." He closed the book, smiled to himself, and went to bed early. Tomorrow, the cycle of growth would begin again, stronger than before. Why heavy checkmark word count, 1000. Would you like me to also prepare part 5 in the same flow, Napoleon Hill story style, so you have it ready to continue the series? Part 5, The Fire of Persistence. The rain came down hard that morning. Daniel sat by the window, watching the gray skies stretch endlessly over the city. He had been working on his small business for months now. At first, his energy was strong. Every morning felt like a fresh chance to conquer the world. But lately, the failures weighed on him like heavy chains. Orders had slowed down. Customers had complained. A deal he was certain about fell apart at the last moment. For the first time since starting, Daniel wondered if maybe he was chasing the wrong dream. "Maybe I should quit," he whispered. The thought hung in the room like a shadow. He remembered something his grandfather once told him. Quitting is the easiest habit in the world. Persistence is the rarest. But the voice of doubt was louder now, telling him that persistence was foolish if the dream was impossible. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He opened an old notebook where he had written quotes and lessons from Napoleon Hill. His eyes landed on one sentence he had copied long ago. A quitter never wins, and a winner never quits. Those words stung. He realized something. Every successful person he admired had failed many times before success arrived. Edison had failed thousands of times before the light bulb worked. Henry Ford went bankrupt twice before building the Ford Motor Company. Abraham Lincoln lost election after election before he became president. Why should his journey be any different? The next morning, Daniel made a decision. If persistence was the master key, then he would practice it no matter how hopeless things seemed. He would give more, learn more, and refuse to stop. The first test of persistence, the universe seemed eager to test him. Just when Daniel felt renewed, another setback struck. A supplier pulled out of their contract, leaving him with no materials to fulfill an order. His old self would have panicked, maybe even given up. But persistence whispered, "Find another way." He called 10 suppliers that day. 9 said no. The 10th offered him a smaller deal, less than what he needed, but it was something. Daniel grabbed it, adjusted his plans, and kept moving. That night, he felt exhausted. But deep inside, he felt something even stronger: pride. He had not quit. He had passed the first test. The enemy within persistence is not only tested by outside obstacles, it is tested by the voice inside. As days turned into weeks, Daniel fought an inner battle. Fear whispered, "What if you're wasting your time?" Doubt said, "Others are smarter than you." Comfort said, "It would be easier to go back to your old job." But Daniel had learned Napoleon Hill's secret. The mind can be trained. Every morning, he spoke words of faith into his reflection. "I will persist until I succeed. My temporary defeat is not failure. Every step, no matter how small, brings me closer to my goal." At first, those words felt empty. But repeated daily, they became a shield. Slowly, his thoughts changed. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to stop, he saw them as signs he was on the right path. Opportunity disguised as defeat. One afternoon, Daniel was delivering a small order to a client. The rain poured again, just as it had weeks ago. As he carried the boxes through the slippery street, one fell open, spilling its contents. Embarrassed, Daniel bent down to clean up, only to hear a voice say, "Do you make these yourself?" He looked up. A tall man in a business suit stood there, watching with curiosity. The man introduced himself as Mr. Carson, the owner of a chain of stores in the city. "Yes, sir, I make these myself," Daniel said nervously. Mr. Carson picked up one of the items, examined it carefully, and smiled. "These are good. Come see me tomorrow. I might place an order." Daniel's heart raced. The accident that could have embarrassed him into quitting turned into the biggest opportunity yet. But when he visited Mr. Carson's office the next day, the man set strict conditions. The products must be delivered in larger quantities. The quality must remain consistent. And delivery times must be faster. For Daniel, it seemed impossible. He didn't have enough money, workers, or tools. That night, fear screamed at him to say no. But persistence whispered, "Say yes, then figure it out." The breakthrough. Daniel said yes. The weeks that followed were the hardest of his life. He borrowed tools. He worked late into the night, often with blistered hands. He trained 2 friends to help him with production. Every day brought new challenges: machines breaking down, sleepless nights, delays that nearly ruined everything. But Daniel held on to the lesson Napoleon Hill had taught: persistence turns impossibility into possibility. Slowly, order by order, he delivered. Mr. Carson increased his purchases. Word spread. Other store owners called. Daniel's business began to grow. The true reward months later, as Daniel looked around his workshop filled with workers, tools, and steady orders, he realized something important. The real reward wasn't just the business. It wasn't just the money. The true reward was what persistence had built inside him. He was no longer the man who thought of quitting at the first storm. He was no longer the man who doubted himself in silence. He had become someone stronger, disciplined, resilient, unstoppable, and he finally understood Napoleon Hill's truth. Persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. The lesson. Daniel's story is not just about business. It is about life. Every dream will be tested. Every goal will face storms, doubts, and defeats. Most people give up when victory is just one step away. But those who persist, those who rise after every fall, those who keep walking when others stop, those are the ones who win. The difference between failure and success is not talent, money, or luck. It is persistence. And persistence is a choice. Word count, 10-15 backhand index pointing right. Would you like me to also prepare part 6, final part, with a powerful call to action for your viewers? Subscribe, share, comment, in Napoleon Hill style? Part 6, the final test of greatness. The last few weeks had changed Daniel's life. From a man who once wavered between fear and hesitation, he had grown into someone with clarity, focus, and unshakable inner strength. But life has a way of testing those who dare to rise. And Daniel's final test came when he least expected it. It was a Monday morning when his company announced a sudden restructuring. Departments were merging, and leaders were being reassigned. Whispers filled the hallways like restless winds. Some feared layoffs. Others feared losing status. The air was heavy with panic. Daniel's team, the one he had fought so hard to guide, was now told they might be scattered into different divisions. His months of progress seemed to be slipping through his hands. For a moment, his heart sank. The old Daniel, the one who once said maybe tomorrow, wanted to appear again. The voice of doubt whispered, "What if it's over? What if all your effort meant nothing?" But then Daniel remembered the lessons he had carved into his soul. Definite purpose. He had chosen his goal not by chance, but by decision. Self-discipline. He had built habits that no storm could easily shake. Faith. He had learned to trust his vision, even in the dark. Persistence. He had refused to quit when doors were slammed shut. And so, instead of giving in to fear, he rose from his chair and gathered his team. "Listen," Daniel said, his voice steady. "We don't control what the company does. But we control what we do. We will stay united, no matter what. Our value is not in a title or a department. It's in the discipline, the excellence, and the purpose we bring every single day." The team nodded, comforted by his calm strength. In that moment, Daniel realized something. True leadership isn't about position. It's about presence. It's about becoming the person others can lean on when the ground feels unsteady. That evening, Daniel sat alone at his desk. Outside, the city lights flickered. He opened the notebook he had been keeping since the start of his journey. Across the first page, he had written, "Day 1, not one day." He smiled. That phrase had once been just words. Now, it was the foundation of his life. He thought about the man he used to be, waiting, delaying, seeking approval, fearing mistakes. That man had been replaced by someone new. Someone stronger. But Napoleon Hill's teachings reminded him, growth never ends. Life would continue to test him. There would always be another challenge, another mountain. But now, Daniel no longer feared the climb. He wrote in his notebook, "I will never wait for permission to live my dream. I will guard my time as my most precious treasure. I will seek silence when the world is loud, for in silence my vision grows. I will protect my mind from doubt, for my mind is my greatest asset. I will live not for approval, but for purpose." When he finished writing, Daniel closed the notebook and whispered, "This is my creed. This is my life." Weeks passed. The company changes came and went. As expected, departments were reshuffled. Daniel's team was assigned to different projects, but something extraordinary happened. His reputation grew. His calmness during the storm had caught the attention of senior leaders. One day, his manager called him into the office. "Daniel," she said, "I've been watching you. While others panicked, you held steady. While others complained, you guided. That is rare. We want you to lead a new initiative. It won't be easy, it's uncharted territory. But I believe you're the man for it." Daniel accepted, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. He knew that this was not luck. This was not chance. This was the result of living the principles of greatness every single day. Months later, Daniel found himself on a stage, speaking to a room full of young professionals at a leadership conference. He shared his story, not of instant success, but of daily choices, small disciplines, and the courage to say day 1 instead of 1 day. "Success," Daniel told them, "isn't a finish line. It's a daily habit. It's the way you guard your mind when fear whispers. It's the way you act with purpose when others freeze. It's the way you rise each morning with a vision so clear that no setback can blind you. If you remember one thing from me, remember this: Greatness doesn't come to those who wait for perfect conditions. Greatness comes to those who decide, act, and persist, even when the storm rages. The room was silent, every face lifted toward him. Daniel realized that his journey had come full circle. The boy who once doubted himself had become a man who could awaken faith in others. That night, as he walked home under the quiet stars, Daniel smiled. He knew challenges would still come. Doubt would still whisper. Fear would still try to enter. But he also knew something else. He had mastered the inner game. And when you win inside, the outside world can never defeat you. He whispered to himself. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. And with that, he stepped forward, calm, strong, unshakable. Call to action. If Daniel's journey spoke to you, then let it be more than a story. Let it be a spark. Start your day one today. Protect your vision, discipline your mind, and live with purpose. Because greatness is not a gift, it's a decision. And now, it's your turn to decide. Backhand index pointing right. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe so we can keep growing this journey together. Your next breakthrough may begin with the choice you make today.